My sense, if you saw the paper, was to give you a brief timeline of astronomy over a 60-year period in 6 minutes. So the paper out there will do justice more than what I can say. But basically, the question, how astronomy and TMT came to Mauna Kea. Well, on May 22nd, 1960, Hilo was struck with a devastating tidal wave generated by an earthquake in Chile. It devastated downtown Hilo. Waikia town was gone. Hilo was flattened. 60 people lost their lives. On a personal note, a number of them were my classmates. Neighborhoods were devastated. Homes were gone. Jobs and workplaces were lost. My dad was one, lost his workplace and his job. So my sense is, to give you a sense, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of sadness. There was a lot of loss that people felt. And people were asking the question, what is the town's future? The town had to rebuild an economy. It was within this context that we begin to see people explore the interest of Mauna Kea and the possibility of doing astronomy there. My timeline gives you a better sense. But we go back to 1963. There are two names, Mitz Akiyama and a gentleman by the name of Howard Ellis, both very dedicated. They sought astronomers to look at Mauna Kea's potential as a site. They were intent on trying to diversify the economy, which was, again, hardly any at all. And many letters were written to a lot of different universities throughout the United States and internationally for them to come to the Big Island and to look at the potential of Mauna Kea. In 1964, astronomer Gerald Kuiper, along with Alika Herring, toured the mountain. And basically, when they went through it, the Board of Supervisors, which is today's County Council, did in 1964 Resolution 361, which on my timeline, I have all the footnotes so you could go to and look at the documentation. But basically, what Kuiper and Herring say is that if you look at Mauna Kea, it is probably one of the best sites that they've seen, and they've went throughout the world, for doing sighting or observatories. So what happens in 1964, the state legislature, again, Legislative Reference Bureau, they pass SRC 16, which gives the legislature and Governor Burns an opportunity to boost the economy by placing a road, money for a road up to Mauna Kea, which starts in 64. In 68, Mauna Kea Science Reserve and DLNR grants University a 65-year lease, authorizing UH to use the Science Reserve as a scientific complex. Then we have a 30-year development of astronomy in Mauna Kea, starting in 1968, where you form the Institute for Astronomy, and you have Harvard, Caltech, NASA looking to see if there's potential here. And then from 79 to the mid-90s, you have Canada, France, you have United Kingdom, you have NASA, Infrared Telescope. In 1980s, you have Caltech, you have Maxwell Telescope, you have the Long Baseline Array, and in 1990s, you have Keck-2, Subaru, and Gemini, and the Smithsonian. So you have this infrastructure in from 60 to 68, 68 to 1990s when the telescopes come in. And then around the year 2000, the community gets a little disenchanted with the way things are being done on Mauna Kea. There's no management. There's nothing happening to bring this whole thing together to balance the different interests. So an audit comes in, and basically, as a result, the community, the legislature directs the university to do a master plan, which is being done. And basically, the audit says that you need to develop a new master plan, and you need to look at areas suitable for astronomical development, where there are no build zones. That needs to be acknowledged. You need to hire rangers. You need to control the thrash. And I was up there before the management, and I knew that what the thrash was like, it was, yeah, incomprehensible. And then you needed continuous community input, and then you called for rules managing the public access, and then, of course, the master plan for the science reserve. So through that, the Office of Mauna Kea Management, OMKM, was formed, Mauna Kea Management Board, a community board, and then a volunteer Native Hawaiian Kahukumana Council was also formed. So that's roughly looking at the year 2000. In May of 2010, TMT makes a decision to come to Hawaii. In March 2010, the Board of Land and Natural Resources approves the sub-plans for the comprehensive management plan, which means you got to address certain things, which I believe Stephanie Nagata will talk about this evening. And then you move throughout that year, you promulgate administrative rules, including what to do, who has authority on the mountain, access, and then you get into February, the BLNR grants UH a conservation district use permit, and then that's on hold because there's a contested case hearing in February of 2011. April 2011, contested case commences, still going. December 2012, hearing officer receives final findings, facts, and conclusions of law from UH and petitioners for his review for the final report for Department of Land and Natural Resources. In April, Department of BLNR issues the final decision granting UH a permit to build the TMT on Mauna Kea. Again, in May of 2013, petitioners file an appeal with the circuit court. And so you get a sense for all the dynamics. But I made very simple, some very complex ideas that are on that handout that's at the table. But I want to get back to Mitz Akiyama, and I want to get back to Howard Ellis, who did what they did in the 1960s. I guess they saw astronomy on Mauna Kea as a means to improve the economy. And we're still talking about that. We're going to talk about that tonight or throughout this series. And the idea of workforce development. That's still, a whole perennial issue over the last 60 years. But it's interesting that, and this is a quote, I have it here from the Hawaii Trib, and he's been interviewed. Mitsuoki's been interviewed in 1991. And if you bear with me, I'll just read this. The Hawaii Herald published an interview with Mitz and his wife, Shizuzu Akiyama, regarding the early days of astronomy on Mauna Kea. Through the interview, Mr. Akiyama shared some candid observations. We learned of the events that led to the first tests on the mountain and the efforts to ensure the development of a science complex on the summit of Mauna Kea that could occur. In the early years, the dream of Mitz Akiyama apparently was met with no opposition. The economic well-being of Hilo was foremost in the minds of participants. While the dream did not manifest because he was looking at a science city as opposed to observatories, he says it has developed into a mecca for scientific research. Now, astronomer Kuiper and Alika Herring were actually the beginning of what was to follow a series of telescopes in the mountain, and their objective, as most astronomies, unlock the mysteries of the universe. Now, notably, in terms of where things are, you talk about decommissioning, and a number of telescopes in that mountain coming forth from the CMP are obsolete. Astronomers say that with the establishment of TMT and the advanced technology, it'll help them upgrade their existing telescopes if you take down a number. And that if you put in place symbiotically this TMT technology, it'll help the other telescopes to upgrade. So without changing their footprint, without requiring any pouring of any cement, you'd upgrade what was there and you'd take down some of what's there now. So you got that perspective, the perspective of economy, the perspective of the mysteries of the universe, and then you've got the CMP and the 1990 master report, which talks about the cultural concerns of the mountain and that kind of thing as early as 2000. Well, more specifically, the management plan of the Office of Mauna Kea Management was established to improve management on the mountain in terms of public safety, the cultural, the religious, the environmental, protection of the EV as designated by the archaeologists, and to manage the concerns on the mountain. It's a journey of how to best balance. And I guess that's kind of like the theme of tonight. So, historically, Mauna Kea since 1960, and if you want to go before that, the book done about 500, 600 pages by Kepa Mali traces Mauna Kea from ancient times right up through. I just took 1960. And basically, going forward, hopefully this kind of conversation that we do tonight, hopefully can find a common ground for science and culture. And I apologize if there's any kind of misstep in terms of those dates, but I did the best I can going through about 6 volumes to get to where we are right now. So mahalo for the evening.